In the heart of ancient Judah, the epic saga of King Uzziah bursts forth, a tale of a mighty ruler whose unparalleled conquests and tragic downfall forever altered the destiny of his kingdom. In the ancient land of Judah, the air was thick with anticipation. The people buzzed with whispers and excitement, for a new king was about to ascend the throne. The kingdom, with its rich tapestry of history and heritage, was about to be ruled by a boy king. At just 16 years old, Uzziah, also known as Azariah, was set to take on the mantle of leadership after the reign of his father, King Amaziah. Uzziah's upbringing was steeped in the traditions and teachings of his ancestors. His father, Amaziah, had been a king who, despite his flaws, sought to follow the Lord's ways. Uzziah grew up in an environment that revered the sacred texts and held the prophet's counsel in high regard. He was tutored by wise men who taught him the history of his people, the laws of Moses, and the importance of seeking God's favor. As the day of his coronation approached, Uzziah felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He was young, and the weight of the kingdom's expectations rested heavily on his shoulders. The kingdom of Judah was a land of great potential, but also one that faced numerous challenges. There were threats from neighboring kingdoms, internal strife, and the ever-present need to maintain the spiritual and moral compass of the nation. The coronation ceremony was a grand affair, held in the majestic Temple of Solomon, the heart of Judah's spiritual life. The temple, with its towering pillars and ornate carvings, was filled with the aroma of incense and the sound of sacred music. Priests in their resplendent robes conducted the rites, and the people gathered in throngs, their eyes filled with hope and curiosity about their new young king. Uzziah stood before the high priest, his heart pounding with a mix of awe and responsibility. The high priest anointed him with holy oil, a symbol of God's blessing and the divine mandate to lead. The words of the high priest echoed in the temple. "May the Lord guide you, Uzziah, as you lead his people. Seek his wisdom and walk in his ways, and he will make your reign prosperous." The young king's first act was to seek the counsel of Zechariah, a wise prophet who had guided his father. Zechariah had a profound understanding of the visions of God and was known for his deep piety and wisdom. Under Zechariah's guidance, Uzziah dedicated himself to seeking the Lord, knowing that his strength and success would come from his faithfulness to God. With the prophet's counsel, Uzziah began to make strategic decisions to strengthen the kingdom. He knew that Judah needed not only spiritual guidance, but also practical measures to ensure its safety and prosperity. One of his first initiatives was to fortify the city's defenses. He ordered the construction of towers at the corners of Jerusalem's walls and strengthened the fortifications. These towers were equipped with advanced weaponry, making Jerusalem a formidable stronghold against potential invaders. Uzziah's passion for innovation extended beyond military defenses. He had a deep love for the land and its people, understanding that a prosperous kingdom needed a strong agricultural foundation. He initiated a series of agricultural reforms, encouraging the cultivation of diverse crops and improving irrigation systems. Uzziah personally oversaw the digging of numerous wells and cisterns, ensuring a reliable water supply for both the people and their livestock. As the years passed, Uzziah's efforts began to bear fruit. The kingdom of Judah experienced a period of unprecedented prosperity. The fields yielded abundant harvests, and the people's granaries overflowed. The fortified walls and towers of Jerusalem stood as symbols of strength and security. Trade flourished, and the streets of Jerusalem buzzed with the activity of merchants and craftsmen. Uzziah's reputation as a wise and capable ruler spread beyond the borders of Judah. Neighboring kingdoms took note of the young king's achievements and sought alliances and trade agreements with Judah. His fame reached as far as Egypt, and he became known as a powerful and respected leader in the region. Yet, despite his successes, Uzziah remained vigilant. He knew that his strength and prosperity were gifts from God, and he continued to seek the Lord's guidance in all his endeavors. His relationship with Zechariah deepened, and the prophet's counsel became a cornerstone of his reign. However, Uzziah's journey was just beginning. The challenges and trials he would face in the coming years would test his faith, his wisdom, and his humility. The story of Uzziah, a young king with a heart for God and a vision for his people, was unfolding. A tale of triumphs, challenges, and lessons that would echo through the ages. The dawn of Uzziah's reign ushered in an era of remarkable transformation for the kingdom of Judah. With his youthful vigor and divine guidance, Uzziah embarked on a series of initiatives that would elevate his nation to new heights of prosperity and security. One of Uzziah's foremost priorities was to secure the borders of Judah. The geopolitical landscape of the time was fraught with threats from powerful neighbors such as the Philistines, Arabs, and Meunites. Uzziah understood that a fortified defense was essential for the safety and stability of his kingdom. To this end, he undertook extensive construction projects to strengthen the defenses of Jerusalem and other key cities. The king ordered the building of towers at the corners and gates of Jerusalem. These towers were not only symbols of strength but also functional military installations, equipped with the latest advancements in siege weaponry. Ingenious machines designed to hurl large stones and shoot multiple arrows were installed, showcasing Uzziah's commitment to both innovation and defense. Beyond the walls of Jerusalem, Uzziah turned his attention to the broader landscape of Judah. He recognized the strategic importance of controlling key territories and securing vital trade routes. Uzziah's campaigns against the Philistines resulted in the capture of their cities of Gath, Jabneh, and Ashdod. These victories were not merely military conquests, they also extended Judah's influence and opened new avenues for trade and commerce. Under Uzziah's visionary leadership, the kingdom's infrastructure flourished. Roads were repaired and expanded, facilitating the movement of goods and people. Trade caravans began to flow more freely, bringing exotic goods and wealth into Judah. The king's focus on infrastructure extended to agricultural development, an area where his passion truly shone. Uzziah had a deep love for the land and its potential to sustain and nourish his people. He initiated a series of agricultural reforms that transformed Judah's countryside. The king invested in irrigation projects, constructing aqueducts and channels to distribute water more efficiently. These efforts turned previously arid lands into fertile fields, boosting crop yields and ensuring food security. To further support agricultural growth, Uzziah encouraged the cultivation of diverse crops. He promoted the planting of vineyards, olive groves, and fig orchards, which not only provided sustenance, but also became valuable commodities for trade. Livestock farming also saw a significant boost under Uzziah's reign. The king personally oversaw the establishment of extensive pastures and the breeding of cattle and sheep, ensuring a steady supply of meat and dairy products for his people. The prosperity that followed these agricultural advancements was palpable. The fields yielded abundant harvests, and granaries overflowed with grain. The people of Judah enjoyed a period of unprecedented plenty, their daily lives enriched by the fruits of Uzziah's foresight and diligence. As Judah's wealth grew, so did its reputation. The kingdom became a hub of trade and commerce, attracting merchants from distant lands. The bustling markets of Jerusalem were filled with goods from across the known world: spices from Arabia, fine linens from Egypt, and precious metals from distant mines. This influx of wealth and diversity further strengthened the kingdom's economy and enriched its culture. Uzziah's military prowess and economic achievements did not go unnoticed by his contemporaries. Neighboring kingdoms, recognizing Judah's growing power and influence, sought to establish diplomatic ties and trade agreements. Uzziah's fame spread far and wide, earning him respect and admiration throughout the region. His name became synonymous with strength and prosperity, and his rule was seen as a beacon of hope and stability in a tumultuous world. Despite his accomplishments, Uzziah remained committed to seeking divine guidance. His relationship with the prophet Zechariah deepened, and the king continued to prioritize his spiritual duties. Uzziah's reign was marked by a balance between innovation and tradition, progress and piety. However, the seeds of pride began to take root in Uzziah's heart. As he reveled in his successes and the adulation of his people, he started to lose sight of the source of his blessings. The lessons of humility and dependence on God that had guided his early years began to fade, setting the stage for the challenges and trials that would soon test his character and faith. The kingdom of Judah, under Uzziah's leadership, was a land transformed, a testament to the potential of a ruler who sought the Lord's guidance and combined it with visionary leadership. Yet, as history would soon reveal, even the greatest of kings could falter when pride clouded their judgment. As the sun rose over Judah, the kingdom basked in an era of unprecedented prosperity and security. The streets of Jerusalem were filled with merchants, scholars, and citizens who praised King Uzziah for his remarkable leadership. His name became synonymous with wisdom, strength, and innovation. Yet as his reign flourished, a subtle shift began to take place within the heart of the king. With each victory and achievement, Uzziah's confidence grew. His early years of humble reliance on divine guidance began to be overshadowed by a burgeoning sense of self-reliance. The once clear understanding that his success was a result of God's favor started to blur, replaced by a belief in his own invincibility. Uzziah's military campaigns had not only expanded Judah's territory, but also filled the royal coffers with wealth. He reveled in the accolades of his people and the respect of foreign dignitaries. The fortified cities, flourishing farmlands, and bustling trade routes were all testaments to his effective rule. It was during this time of heightened self-assurance that pride quietly took root in his heart. Among Uzziah's many accomplishments, his ambitious building projects stood out. He had a passion for architecture and engineering, commissioning the construction of grand structures that would stand as monuments to his reign. The towers he had built at the corners and gates of Jerusalem were marvels of engineering, equipped with advanced military technology. The king's court was filled with advisors and officials who praised his every decision. Flattery and admiration became a daily part of Uzziah's life, further inflating his ego. The once cautious and humble ruler began to believe that his wisdom was beyond reproach and that his strength was unmatched. This growing pride clouded his judgment and distanced him from the humility that had marked the early years of his reign. One of the most significant indicators of Uzziah's changing heart was his attitude towards the temple and its rituals. The temple of the Lord in Jerusalem was the spiritual heart of the nation, a place where the sacred duties of worship and sacrifice were performed by the consecrated priests, descendants of Aaron. These rituals were governed by strict divine commandments, underscoring the holiness and separateness of the priestly duties. However, Uzziah's pride led him to overstep these boundaries. In his mind, his success and favor with God granted him privileges beyond those of ordinary men. He began to see himself as not only a king, but also as a divinely appointed leader who could partake in the sacred rites reserved for the priests. This dangerous line of thinking set the stage for his greatest transgression. On a day that would be remembered for its tragic consequences, Uzziah decided to enter the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar. This act was a direct violation of God's commandments, which stated that only the priests, the sons of Aaron, were consecrated to perform such duties. Uzziah's decision was not just an act of arrogance, but a blatant disregard for the sacred laws that had been handed down through generations. As Uzziah entered the temple, censer in hand, a sense of defiance mingled with his pride. The holy atmosphere of the temple, with its sacred artifacts and the lingering aroma of incense, should have reminded him of his place and the reverence due to God. Instead, it emboldened him further. He felt justified in his actions, convinced that his status as king gave him the right to overstep divine boundaries. Azariah the high priest, along with 80 courageous priests of the Lord, confronted Uzziah as he approached the altar. Their faces were stern, and their voices carried a mixture of reverence and urgency. "It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for you have trespassed." 2 Chronicles 26:18 Web. Uzziah's reaction was swift and furious. His eyes blazed with anger, and his hand tightened around the censer. He refused to listen to the priests, his pride blinding him to the gravity of his actions. In that moment of confrontation, the ground beneath them trembled, and a palpable sense of divine presence filled the temple. As Uzziah stood there, defiant and unrepentant, a sudden and terrifying event unfolded. Leprosy broke out on his forehead, a visible and immediate sign of God's judgment. The priests, recognizing the severity of the situation and the divine punishment that had befallen the king, rushed him out of the temple. The once mighty and revered king was now marked with leprosy, a condition that rendered him ritually unclean and separated him from the community. This dramatic turn of events shocked the kingdom. Uzziah, the king who had brought prosperity and security to Judah, was now isolated and disgraced. His son Jotham took over the governance of the people, while Uzziah lived in a separate house, cut off from the temple and the public life he once dominated. The news of King Uzziah's affliction spread rapidly through the kingdom of Judah. The once great monarch, now marked by leprosy, was a stark symbol of divine judgment and human frailty. The people of Judah, who had celebrated his victories and enjoyed the prosperity he brought, were now confronted with the sobering reality of his downfall. The king, who had once walked among them as a symbol of strength and leadership, was now confined to isolation, separated from the temple, his palace, and his people. Uzziah's leprosy was more than just a physical ailment. It was a spiritual and social catastrophe. Leprosy rendered a person ritually unclean according to the laws of Moses, meaning Uzziah could no longer participate in the temple worship or lead his people in any capacity. He was forced to live in a separate house, away from the royal palace, where his son Jotham assumed the responsibilities of governance. The separation from his royal duties and public life was a bitter pill for Uzziah to swallow. In his isolation, he had ample time to reflect on his actions and the pride that had led to his downfall. The grand projects he had initiated, the military victories, the agricultural innovations, these accomplishments now seemed distant and overshadowed by his current state. Uzziah, once the epitome of strength and vision, was now a cautionary tale of pride and hubris. In his solitary dwelling, Uzziah's thoughts frequently returned to the moment of his greatest error. The confrontation with the priests, the defiance, and the sudden divine retribution played over and over in his mind. He remembered the stern faces of the priests, the earthquake that shook the temple, and the immediate appearance of leprosy on his forehead. It was a moment that would be forever etched in his memory, a powerful reminder of the cost of arrogance. Uzziah's relationship with God, which had once been the cornerstone of his successful reign, was now strained. In his isolation, he sought the Lord with a renewed sense of humility and repentance. The scriptures and prophecies that had once guided his actions took on new meaning. He realized that his earlier successes were not his own, but blessings from God, granted as long as he remained faithful and obedient. His pride had blinded him to this truth, leading him to overstep his bounds and face the consequences. Despite his isolation, Uzziah continued to seek ways to serve his kingdom. He communicated with his son Jotham and his advisors, offering his wisdom and guidance. Although he could no longer rule directly, he endeavored to support the administration and ensure the continuation of the policies and projects he had started. His exile became a period of introspection and silent leadership, where his contributions, though indirect, still shaped the kingdom. Jotham, though young, proved to be a capable leader. Under his stewardship, Judah continued to thrive. He implemented the policies his father had established, focusing on fortification, agriculture, and maintaining the military strength of the kingdom. Jotham's respect for his father and his commitment to carrying on his legacy ensured that Judah remained stable during this transitional period. The people of Judah, while saddened by their king's condition, respected Uzziah's efforts to guide from afar. His fall served as a poignant reminder of the importance of humility and obedience to God's laws. The priests, who had once stood in opposition to Uzziah's prideful act, now included him in their prayers, recognizing his repentance and his continued faith. Uzziah's physical condition worsened over time. Leprosy was a debilitating disease, and the king's health gradually declined. His once powerful frame weakened, and the isolation weighed heavily on his spirit. Yet, through his suffering, Uzziah's faith deepened. He spent long hours in prayer and reflection, seeking solace and forgiveness. The king, who had once been at the pinnacle of human achievement, now found himself relying solely on his faith and the mercy of God. In the quiet solitude of his separate house, Uzziah's thoughts often drifted to the future of his kingdom. He prayed fervently for Jotham and the people of Judah, asking God to grant them wisdom and protection. His concern for his kingdom never waned, even as his own life ebbed away. He hoped that his fall would serve as a lesson for future generations, a reminder of the dangers of pride and the importance of humility and faithfulness. As Uzziah's days drew to a close, he found a sense of peace. He had made his peace with God, acknowledging his sins and seeking forgiveness. His story, though marked by a tragic fall, was also a testament to the possibility of redemption and the enduring power of faith. Uzziah, the king who had once been a beacon of strength, had become a symbol of humility and repentance. The kingdom of Judah continued to honor Uzziah even in his isolation. His contributions to the nation's prosperity and security were not forgotten. As King Uzziah's life waned, the kingdom of Judah stood at a crossroads, reflecting on the profound impact of his reign. His legacy was a blend of extraordinary accomplishments and humbling lessons, providing a rich tapestry of insights for future generations. Though physically isolated due to his leprosy, Uzziah's influence permeated the kingdom, shaping its destiny long after his passing. In his final days, Uzziah's condition confined him to his secluded residence, but his mind remained sharp and his heart steadfast in seeking God's wisdom. The story of Uzziah is one of both triumph and tragedy, a compelling tale that captures the complexities of human nature and the unwavering justice of God. It reminds us that true greatness lies not in our own strength, but in our faithfulness and humility before the Lord. As we reflect on the life of Uzziah, we are reminded of the delicate balance between success and humility, power and reverence. His life stands as a testament to the enduring truth that those who exalt themselves will be humbled, but those who humble themselves will be exalted by the hand of God.